Once again, welcome everyone. Delighted you're all able to join us for this webinar. This is the third of the series of webinars we've been putting on the research charter that we've developed. So delighted we're able to share it with yourselves really. So thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Percy Akudo. I'm the head of strategy and policy at the Caribbean African Health Network, but then also part of the research team really that has been putting together these. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. I'm also joined by my wonderful colleagues really from ARC, GM, and then also from Vocal here today, and they'll be introducing themselves shortly as they come up with their various bits. Just so everyone knows, the session is being recorded, so you can turn off your cameras or you can leave them on if you prefer. We also have a chat box, so feel free to type in your questions at any time. There'll be a Q&A at the end. Everyone's microphones are turned off by default, so you don't need to worry about any background noise. Um, any resources, the links, QR codes, everything mentioned today would share that alongside the slides really after the webinar. So just to say massive thanks once again to everyone for joining us. If you've been along to the previous webinars, you will know by now that this charter is for us, it's more than just a document really. It represents a shared commitment to building trusted, impactful, and mutual beneficiary relationships between researchers, research organizations, but then also the voluntary community, faith, and the social enterprise sector, really, and the wider public. The charter for us is not a static checklist, so instead, it's something that is designed to inspire researchers to think differently about what's possible, to be truly inclusive, and to ensure that everyone has access to research opportunities. And pretty much very importantly, it's about empowering VCFSC organizations and community leaders and the public to know what to expect when it comes to research. So over the course of this webinar, we're introducing you to these key principles that VCFSC and researchers have told us they need really for research to be equitable, to be meaningful, and then to have those sustained partnerships. So you'll hear a number of community voices in these webinars who would speak on different things about how the charter is already making a difference to their work and how they're embedding it into practice. So we're inviting pretty much everyone really to sign up to the charter and then think about how it applies to you, your work, and then to make research really something that works for everyone. So I'll be inviting my colleague Sue, who will be coming up to share more about the pillar three, which we'll be exploring today. And it's all about respect for community values. So I'll hand over to Sue now. Thank you.
Thank you, Percy, and thank you everybody for joining us again today. My name is Sue Wood. I am Head of Operations for the Applied Research Collaboration, which is one of the research infrastructures in Greater Manchester, and also supporting the Research Engagement Network team, which is joining up some of our activity. So today, if you joined us last time, you will have heard very much about how we've heard from community leaders about their thoughts on the two first pillars, the community leadership, and embedding research in communities. Their experiences of building trust with researchers, tackling power dynamics, and the value of community research champions, community connectors. In this webinar, we're going to focus on the pillar about respect for community values. And we have some powerful examples, and thank you to all our speakers today for joining us to tell you a little bit about some of the work that they have been doing to really embed a value to respect for communities. When we talk about respect for community values, we know that communities know their neighbourhoods. We need to listen and learn first to understand what people need. When we talk about respect for research, culture and religious competence and racial sensitivity are absolutely essential. Listening, learning before anything else. We show respect for cultural norms, traditions and values throughout the research process. That means involving trusted voices, community champions, leaders and experts right from the start. It's not being afraid to ask questions when we don't know something. Curiosity done respectfully can really build trust. Before research begins, we need to work together to create shared aims and objectives and clear expectations. We know that language matters, so we need to be thinking about how we can provide translation services, materials in preferred languages, and accessible formats to remove barriers to participation. Cultural competence training for researchers, for people taking part in research who really need to understand the unique cultural, historical, and social context of diverse communities. We also need to acknowledge our past mistakes, be honest, work to rebuild trust where communities have had poor experiences of research in the past. And we never forget that identity is complex. People belong to many different communities and have unique experiences of discrimination and oppression. So I'm going to hand over to Anila, and Anila is going to introduce all our speakers today, and hopefully you will enjoy listening to their inspiring stories of how they are addressing respect for community values. Thank you, Anila.
So, my name's Anila McAvoy. I work with Sue at the Applied Research Collaboration, and I've got the privilege of introducing some amazing speakers today. So, the first project that we're going to be speaking about is the COVID-19 vaccine equity study, and in particular a piece of creative work that was done alongside that, which was Manchester Memories. So we have Stephanie Gillibrand, who's a research fellow at Manchester University, and Russ Cowper, who sat on the public advisory group of that project, who are speaking first. So we're going to be doing this section as a bit of a Q&A, bit of an interview style, with Steph leading some presentations. So I'm going to hand over to Steph.
Thank you. Thanks, Nina. So I'm just getting my screens in the right place, sorry. Yeah, it's great to be here today and to speak about this project because I think hopefully Russ will agree that we really enjoy talking about this, and this is something that we did a couple of years ago in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, and something we've been working on really for a couple of years now, and it's great to be able to share some of the insights, not only from doing it, but also getting to talk about how much fun we had.
Yeah.
Do you want to? I'll ask Russ as well if he wants to just quickly introduce himself and just maybe talk about his role in the project, just quickly.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Russ. Yeah, my role in the project. So I write a bit of poetry, and I never realised how powerful it could be until we actually created this book and I saw some of the work that had gone into it. And it's one of the best things that I've ever been involved with, and we won an award for it as well. And it's just an incredible experience, extremely moving, and just fabulous. Lots of fun, and work with some amazing people.
Thanks, Russ. So this we're going to be talking about this scene that we created. But first, if you can move on to the next slide, Joanna, and I'll whoever's doing the controls. Thank you. So I'll just give you a bit of background to the to the actual project. So during COVID, obviously, we knew that there was significantly disproportionate experiences and health outcomes for marginalised communities across the country, but particularly in Greater Manchester. And we were doing quite a large piece of work that was quantitative and qualitative focused, looking at inequities in vaccine uptake and also people's unequal experiences of the pandemic. So we did a big qualitative piece of work. We created these 2 research articles, which you can see here on the right. And these really explored themes of marginalisation, distrust, people's responses to the COVID-19 vaccines, how communities rallied together and supported their local communities during the pandemic. And what we found when we spoke to community participants, that we just had realms and realms of narratives and stories and people's really personal experiences. And our community advisory group really felt that it wasn't appropriate to put these into research articles, to almost sterilize them in that way. So our community group came together and said, we want to do something creative. And then basically the brief was to make that happen. So right from the get-go, we had a small group of contributors planning what we wanted to do and think about briefing ideas for it. And then we really just started off. I think there was a sense that we wanted to do something that was like a physical copy, and also something that was a book-like. So we got everyone together and we just started storyboarding. So we had 3 workshops, which I'll take you through, where we did a real collaborative approach to co-creating some of the ideas of this zine, and developing the zine itself. So we did 3 workshops. The first photo on the left, this is from our storyboarding workshop, where we got together with a wider group of contributors to involve them into the project. So these were some people who had and hadn't been involved initially, just to kind of brainstorm what we wanted to be included in this book. And then you can see here this photo on the bottom right. This was in the wellbeing room in the Simon Building, for those of you who are familiar with the University of Manchester. And they have these giant human-sized beanbags. And so our idea was to get people to have some fun. So we started off with people sitting on tables and chairs, and then we really wanted to kind of, let people feel comfortable and feel, get out of that kind of academic mindset. So we just had a real giggle, and it was really important that it was not only an accessible space, but somewhere that people could feel comfortable. And when we were talking about planning this presentation, Anila reminded me of one of our contributors who was in an accessibility chair, and a mobility chair. And, we managed to get them out and on the beanbags with us. And, they said how important that was for them to be part of the fun. And then we did another 2 workshops as well, where we did some creative art. So we just got people in a room drawing, painting. This is the one you can see on the left. This was with Khan, who helped us to organise it. We did it in a local community church, and we just got people drawing and chatting and letting their guard down, and just to give us some ideas and inspiration for the book. And then we did another workshop as well, in collaboration with a group called Young Identity, who are a local creative writing charity. They work with young marginalised groups in Greater Manchester, and they basically create and nurture young poets. And so we did an event where we did like a buddy poetry writing session, and we had people from all different backgrounds. We had retired people, we had students, we had unemployed people, we had, people who work in, corporate jobs, a real mix of everyone. We had parents, and we got people together and writing these bits of poetry. So I just want to hand over to Russ to talk about his experiences of what it was like to being involved in these workshops, and how you found kind of making the content for this zine. And was it anything you'd ever done before?
It wasn't anything I'd ever particularly done before, and I think my endearing memory of it was writing the poem with Femina and a sister about the death of their other sister, and they'd never written poetry before. And I dabbled with poetry. I wouldn't say I'm prolific, but I've dabbled with it. And I said, well, you tell me the story and I'll see if I can put it into a poem for you. And it was possibly the most emotional half an hour of my life. Afterwards, I had to leave the room and go outside, because I was close to tears. Femina and her sister were close to tears. And we'd created this poem that was actually, it's quite beautiful when I look back at it. And I think to myself, when people work together and can come up with something as creative and as beautiful and soulful as that offers solace as well to Femina, and give me an insight into what it must have been like to lose like a close relative with COVID and the problems and the pressures that were on at that time. It was just an incredible experience. And all throughout it, all through the workshops, the energy of everybody was just amazing. We all really wanted to get together and do our best and provide something that, will live forever, so that in 50 years' time, people can look back and say, that really happened during COVID. Wow. Just incredible experience.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Ross. No, I think that really just reflects, like, we really took everyone's ethos of what they wanted this book to be, and really tried to make it something that reflected everyone's priorities. So people really wanted it to be something that was, memorable to themselves, but also something that was part of that healing process, so that we didn't re-traumatize people whilst acknowledging a lot the pain that people went through, but also giving giving a nod to, the resilience and the hope as well that was really fostered during that time. And I think the way that we did the workshops really helped to bring that to fruition as well. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is just a little bit of an inside look at the zine. So I just wanted to give you a quick little snippet of the book, and this kind of draws on some of the themes that we wanted to do. So you see here in the left-hand corner, this was a poem that Russ wrote, and he can talk a bit more about this in a moment, but and we wanted to put some art to it. So we had an artist that came in and tried to, they were there with us, like capturing some of these during these conversations and capturing some of the sentiments that was released. And then this one in the middle, I don't know if you can see, there's a piece of artwork in this photo in the middle. This is one of our contributors' GCSE artwork that they were doing during the time of the pandemic. So they really wanted that to be included. We had some recipes included as well, because obviously that was such a big part of the pandemic. And we also have a space for reflection, because it was really important for our contributors that people reading this scene and this book, that it wasn't a passive engagement, that it was something that people could really meaningfully engage with, and encourage other people to be brought into our process that we'd done as well. And I think that was really important as well. We also had someone who was visually impaired who worked with us, and they really wanted us to make sure that this was online accessible to a screen reader. So we made sure that then when this final version of this book is accessible to a screen reader, so we worked with a graphic designer to be able to do that. And really it was about bringing these community voices to life using these art and these stories in a way that was owned by the people who had not only been part of the research, but also widening it out to a broader group of people. So I think we started off with maybe like 5 to 10 people. And by the end of these workshops and this creative process, we probably engaged with over 100. And it was that snowballing effect of bringing other people into this space and bringing people along for us with the journey in a way that they took proper ownership of it as well. Russ, do you want to comment on anything?
Yeah, it's amazing the reach that we had from that little beginning of an idea, and where it ended up, as you said, it just kept snowballing and seemed to, it didn't grow out of necessity, it grew organically, I think. And it was just every little new idea we engaged with. I mean, I'm looking at that page now and I'm thinking about the banana bread, having a recipe in there, how beautiful, when we talked about that was what we were making during COVID, and let's include it, little things like that were really important for the book, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was not, I want to emphasize not only what we made, but the process of making it as well.
Yeah.
And think that was really important, definitely for myself. The next slide, please. So this is just some photos from some of the celebrations events that we did. So obviously we created the scene, we created 200 copies, physical copies. They're in high demand, so unfortunately we've got none left, but there is an online copy which we'll put in the chat. But our contributors really wanted to finish off the project nicely, and to think about how we could bring this to people who couldn't be involved in making the actual the zine itself. So we did 2 or 3 launch events. We did one online so that we could reach a wider audience. We did one that was part of the University of Manchester's bicentenary festival. So one of our contributors, Sadia, had the idea that we should host this as like a nested event within the festival, so that we could kind of bring the celebration to it. I think our contributors wanted to kind of celebrate what we'd achieved and what we'd made, and it was really important that we did this in a way that was still accessible to lots of different communities and could engage with different communities. So even though the event was on university premises, we made sure that it wasn't academic and it was accessible, and we just had some fun with it. We got some local drummers who did some music. We had some poetry performances, and then we also did another event, part of International Mother Language Day, because our contributors come from a really diverse set of social and cultural, religious backgrounds, and really wanted to be able to do something in another language, specifically their mother tongue. And so we did an event where people read pieces of from the book in their own language and also in English, and we just had a great discussion about, you know, what it means to celebrate and reflect and create art in a mother tongue, and what it means to translate, and what that means for the creative process. Russ, do you want to, because Russ was front and center in many of these events reading his bits of poetry, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think the launch event, especially the one at the university, was a day I'll never forget. It was just the whole experience of seeing everything we'd done be able to be given out to the general public, and the reception that we received for it, and the applause that the poems received and the drummers received. It was just gave me a real sense of achievement, something that I'm immensely proud of, you know. And the fact that people like my poetry is quite humbling as well, in a way, for me, you know, because I never expected to be writing poetry at my age, to be honest. I didn't. And for it to be so well received has been one of the highlights of my life, really. And to see it actually down in print and actually be spoken at events. And I had two of my friends come along to an event. One of them used to be an actor, and he spoke one of my poems out at the event at the Contact Theatre. And that was a real privilege to see my friend do a poem for my own poem. It was just amazing. It's just, like I say, just been one of the most incredible experiences of my life being involved.
Yeah, and actually, I think from myself as well, you know, watching our contributors be a part of this process, as I say, we have a real mix of characters and a real mix of skill set as well. People, you know, Russ is perhaps you know, more accomplished on the poetry side of things than other people started off being, but actually watching people's journey and their confidence grow, not only from having never written anything creative in their lives to then performing it, that was really amazing to watch. Can we have the next slide, please? So this is just some reflections about, obviously, the process of doing this. You know, I think we've really talked up the project and how incredible it was, and it was certainly one of the highlights of my career. But it also wasn't without its challenges, and it's a lot of work to bring this all together. You know, and so many different people involved. So I suppose I just want to spend a bit of time reflecting on navigating some of that. So obviously, we've got some of the pillars from the Greater Manchester Respectful Research Charter, and I was reflecting on this when we were creating this presentation, and I think hopefully what we've spoken about really shows about how you can bring these pillars to life in a way that isn't prescriptive and doesn't necessarily give you, you know, like a checklist. It just talks you through about how you can create a frame of mind that then this stuff comes out naturally and organically, I think. There's so many of these pillars that are really embedded in the way that we worked, and I hope that shone through from the way that what we were speaking about. And this links to that first point of you don't need to over curate. We just brought people together. We did spend quite a lot of time thinking about how we were going to, you know, get people to feel comfortable and to work together, but not in a way that we were overly prescriptive and really set on creating. You know, when we started off the process, we didn't know what we were going to create at the end, and that fluidity and that flexibility, I think, enabled our communities to really take hold of what we created, and also for them to have that leadership role. You know, I was just the conduit. I, you know, didn't do anything. They created it. I just put people in a room together. And, you know, that reflects on being able to listen to people as well. You know, we had, as I say, a really diverse group of people. And, you know, sometimes it's challenging when you've got all of these ideas. You think, okay, well, how are we going to bring that to life? And really every decision that we made, there was trade-offs, was, you know, being led by everyone in the room. And it was, I think, quite democratic, if I say so myself. But, you know, it was something to be mindful of all the way through. It did take a huge amount of time. And for any researchers who are listening to this and think they want to try their hands at it, don't underestimate how much time it takes. I think we've been doing this for like maybe 4 years. We had to get in extra funding to support it. The ARC were very generous. But, you know, it takes a lot of time and resources to bring this together. But I also don't want that to put you off, because it doesn't have to. You know, you work with what you've got. And we were very lucky to have the resources to make something like this. But even if we'd only done the poetry workshop, or we'd only done you know, a small part of what we achieved in the end, I still think we would have been able to bring this ethos to life in the way that we wanted to. Some of my personal reflections as well is the importance of costing staff time on this. I didn't cost enough of my own time, so I would really encourage other researchers to make sure you cost your time enough yourself, and also the importance of paying public contributors as well. You know, we did make sure that we factored that into the budget, so every single workshop, every single bit of people's time was appropriately reimbursed, and that's really important as well. And I think Russ is going to finish off with a poem, but I just wanted to draw your attention quickly to this quote in the middle, because I think people get quite daunted and intimidated by doing certainly these creative outputs, and certainly I was when I first started, let me tell you. But our contributor Naz always leads with this quote, and I really like it. And she says, "What we do is hard work, it's not hard work." And I think that's what we need to remember when we go about doing these things. So, Russ, can I hand you over to finish with a poem, please?
You certainly can, Steph, and don't underestimate what you put into this. Without you, none of this would have happened. So thank you for your hard work. Right, the poem is called "The Proud Mancunian Spirit." The people of our city endured as we always do. The proud Mancunian spirit always shines through. We were hit very hard. Times were really tough. That proud Mancunian spirit made us extra tough. We rallied to the call, helped each other through lockdown. The proud Mancunian spirit epitomises our town. We've learnt some tough lessons, lost loved ones along the way. The proud Mancunian spirit never once gave any sway. Now we fight back stronger, look back at tears and fears. The proud Mancunian spirit lights up our nation's fears. We innovate more quickly, research even faster. The proud Mancunian spirit means nothing is our master. To all those who's loved and lost, our empathy is strong. That proud Mancunian spirit of which we all belong.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you so much, Ross. That was amazing. And we're all on time up to now, so brilliant. Please, we're going to put all the links to the booklet in the chat, so download it, have a read. It is such a good little read, and nice to reflect as well, because we kind of feel like we've moved on from COVID, and maybe sometimes we don't reflect on how far we've come. Steph, amazing presentation. Thank you for that. And I was just thinking about how actually all the pillars of, you know, community ownership, as well as respect for community values, embedding the research in the communities, accessible approaches, and that mutually beneficial relationships, like you literally could have covered all of them. But just thinking about how much time you spent to listen and understand what was the need of the community was amazing, and why this was such a success. And just to kind of go back to that beginning reflection, the fact that you had this public panel of community members for the piece of research that really kind of supported that piece of research, but then was able to reach into the community. You know, we did an art project with a pastor at a church, and some of the conversations that came up then from carers and people with young families who were frontline workers and so worried at that time, it was really, really rich and valuable. So having those relationships right from the off with your research allowed you to kind of see where this went, really. So it was just such a brilliant piece of work. So proud to have been part of it. So thank you, Steph and Russ. If anyone's got any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll have a little bit of time to take questions, and Russ and Steph can answer in the chat as well. We're going to move on to Tess Keeble next. So Tess works for an organisation called Made by Mortals, and we've worked with Steph a few times, but this piece of work is around that role of a community connector when someone is working within a VCFSE organisation and is asked to support a researcher to recruit, whether that's participants or public involvement, or have conversations with community members and what that might feel like. So I'm going to hand over to Tess to talk through your presentation. Tess.
Thank you very much, Anila. Yes. We're Made by Mortals. We bring lived experience to life through immersive audio stories, music, theatre, film, and interactive workshops. We're an arts organisation, and we're based in Tameside in Greater Manchester. So as Anila said, I'm going to talk you through a piece of work that we did with the ARC on the REN work that specifically looked at this pillar, really, and looking at community champions and responding to that and building an interactive tool for researchers to discuss this more and talk about it. But then what I'll also do in the second half is just unpack a bit more how participatory arts, I think, as Russ and Steph have beautifully shown us, can really help us embed these values and how that's our methodology in working in research, and just unpack that a bit more, which will really underpin and a lot of what Russ and Steph have been saying. So the reason for this pillar really is because I think we probably all know in this webinar that when public engagement and involvement isn't done well, and we certainly know from working with researchers and community groups, that it can leave people feeling like the stuff on this screen. So used, like not listened to, disappointed, problem to be fixed, wheeled in and wheeled out, we heard a lot. So really it's the opposite of the things that this pillar is trying to achieve. People aren't feeling listened to, they're not feeling like the researchers are there to learn from them, and it's not culturally sensitive or sensitive to the communities that they're specifically working with. So next slide, please. So the piece of work that we ended up developing with the ARC for REN was an interactive workshop for researchers called A Mile in Their Shoes. And we worked with 7 community connectors who also wanted to be called community champions in this. We had lots of discussion about what the right word was, and I think connectors and champions worked well for them. John and Femina, who, if any of you came to the last webinar that was focused on community connectors, were part of this along with 5 others. And what we really were looking at was the challenges and barriers that community champions face when they're working with researchers that want to connect to their community, and then the possible solutions. So I think, as Anila has brilliantly says, the community champions really are that sort of used to call them a golden thread, I think, at times of kind of working with research. They are the ones that will help researchers really kind of meet the values of this pillar. So getting the relationship with them right is absolutely key to connecting with diverse communities and to getting the cultural sensitivity, the community sensitivity right. So we developed this workshop out of conversations with these champions. We embedded audio clips, we're going to hear one in a moment, from the champions themselves. And also, as you'll see in a photograph in a moment, we had a load of shoes in the room, and for the purpose of the workshop we said these were the community champions shoes, and as part of the workshop we invited researchers to put those shoes on and walk around the room and really imagine, what is it like to be a community champion? What are their lives like? What are they carrying? As I'm sure sort of John and Femina might have shared some of that. And then what is it like when a researcher comes along with all their requests and timelines and demands, and trying to sort of connect the two? So if I can have the next slide, please. So we toured that workshop then actually to 3 universities in Greater Manchester, and also with the Northern Care Alliance at Royal Oldham Hospital. It went down really well. I'll share a bit more about that in a moment. But first, let's hear from our community champions as they talk about how we can overcome the challenges and barriers of not doing this well. So if we can press play, please.
So your instructions to us or your needs to us must be as transparent as they possibly can. So that's the only way we can help you. That's the only way we can, between the two of us, we can deliver what the researcher needs.
Conversations about expectations, conversations about context, conversations about like what might realistically happen as a result of them sharing their story. So they're going in with informed consent if they are gonna share anything.
One of the ways we can validate them is go back to them after the research is done. Give them the this is we did research and this is the outcome of it, and you know, we made a big song and dance wanting to get their research, but then we forget about them once we've attained the information that we wanted from them. So how do we keep nurturing that relationship so then they'll be more liable to come back to us when you need more research?
Having a source of ongoing support, whether that's the researcher or through their ongoing support networks, is, you know, where they can get some feedback, and even if the feedback is nothing's happened yet.
Communication. That is your key element. If we're not communicating or we've got miscommunications, if I'm having to chase you up or you're having to chase me up, or we're playing phone tag, we can't work. Set times and be frank and honest, because that's the only way we can go ahead with whatever we're doing.
Condense data, condense information, condense research sheets. Let there be one page saying this is what we want you to do, this is the outcome, these are the people we need to, on one page or 2 pages, not a million documents. It's not realistic.
And we've got to be mindful that a lot of the time we might be approaching voluntary organisations, and their time should be compensated, and their expertise and their knowledge, because they're at full capacity anyway. And I think recognising that is really important, and also compensating the participants.
Some of them are struggling with poverty. That's the reality. Look at planning. If you are designing a project, to know that you will compensate for their time, and they get to know really that I will get cash or I'll get a voucher, shopping voucher.
It's a thank you, yeah? So it's good to reimburse people for the research because it's important.
For it to be effective, you need to also factor in the cost of maybe having a support worker there, so someone from that community that understands that group, so is there to kind of make sure the conversation flows. Sometimes there's trust issues, so that sessional worker that has that relationship with the group is able to kind of keep them going.
Flexibility is absolutely key. It doesn't work for everybody. 9 to 5 does not work for everybody. People are struggling with time. We are time poor. We are attention poor. So my key thing, I do firmly believe that we should invest in and start training and embedding community-based research hubs where we don't have to go elsewhere to be validated, to be understood, to be heard.
Thank you. And if we go to the next slide, yes, you'll see the workshop. So we actually did 5 in total with the pilot. So you can see the shoes. The first audio we hear in the workshop is the community champions describing their own shoes, which is really lovely. So we can really imagine walking in them. You can see people there walking around. Music and live music is a really important part of our process, as I'll mention in a moment. So at each workshop, we had a cellist, 2 cellists we work with. This is Svetlana. So she played, and it wasn't just it's not just background music, it's part of bringing lived experience to life. So the cellists were responding to the themes, rhythms and patterns of what the researchers were sharing in the rooms, and that became part of the piece as well. So as I'll say in a moment again, that music is a really important way that people can connect to their emotions and therefore make decisions from there. So if we can go to the next slide, please. We then developed a best practice guide, a PDF, which is still available on our website in our members area for free, which that QR code will take you to, but you can also find it on our members area or on our website, which really draws out a lot of the themes that Sue has mentioned at the beginning about the research charter, the things that you heard in that audio, but also we had long conversations with the community champions, so there's a few extra bits in there. One of the really interesting things that they all shared was food is absolutely fundamental, breaking bread together and building trust, but having the right food. So again, thinking that cultural sensitivity and community awareness running right through to even what food are you offering. Is it hot food? Is it sandwiches? Is it culturally appropriate as well? So that's a really interesting point that's in there. The audio clips that we use in the workshop workshop are all embedded in the PDF on that first page. So if you download it, you could click on them, you could use them in your own workshops and training. So if you just go to the next slide, I'm just going to whistle stop you through this last bit to just underline what Steph was saying. So we're an arts organisation. We really believe that the participatory arts method can help demonstrate and embed these community values of learning, listening. Co-production is key. We do it through creating fictional characters and stories, often around key health themes. So the public engagement and involvement work is that creating a fictional story and character that the whole group owns, and using music, and that's all on our members area as well. But as you've heard from Russ and Steph, there are other ways to create participatory arts. So if we go to the next slide. I love this quote from a lived experience group we work with mums in addiction and recovery. When you're talking about something traumatic, you can't really put that into a yes or no answer, can you? Sometimes massive bits of information can get missed. And I think Ross's poem, where he worked with that kind of expressing that loss during COVID, really sums that up, that the arts can express things that surveys and kind of questionnaires can't really do. It can also create safety. People can express through the art, for us, through that kind of character, through the story, group ownership. And it's people are more than their trauma or their health problem. You're also getting them to be co-creators, co-collaborators. They're using their imagination, their voices, and they get to see that. So they get to see how their ideas have been used, because there they are in the stories, there they are in the music. So next slide, please, just to sum up some of those benefits. So it really helps you be inclusive. It can break down barriers. It's an interesting thing to do. It boosts the kind of research impact, as you've seen from Russ and Steph, and also from the things that we create. They're really shareable. They're really interesting to listen to pass on. It's embedding lived experience in a different way. It's not the wheeled in, wheeled out. It's that kind of creativity. It inspires reflection and change. Next slide, please. This is a quote from a researcher we're just finishing a project with, working with this absolutely gorgeous group of adults with learning disabilities in Hyde. They work on an allotment. I'll just let you read that for a moment. If we go to the next slide. There's a couple of quotes there. The benefits to participants, I think Ross has really summed this up excellently already. But if we could just play the audio, we'll hear from a group of women we work with on looking at coercive control and domestic abuse and the impact working with us had.
It was almost a bit like therapy, talking to other people who unfortunately had been in the same boat as me, had similar experiences.
Talking to the other people who have lived through it, it just makes it, well, it made it easier for me.
It was reassuring to speak with them and realise that, no, it isn't me, it wasn't my fault. These men, and I'm sure women as well, behave in this way, and we all seem to have similar experiences in how we'd been treated as well, so I found that quite reassuring.
It was brilliant, just walking out that door that day. I'd done it. A big weight had been lifted, and thought, well, I hope it helps somebody.
Sort of validated, and that my opinions were worthwhile, well, my experiences as well.
So not only do you create something for the wider audience, the wider public, you're actually creating a positive impact and change within the women who are involved themselves.
Knowing that this could potentially help other people as well. That's why I wanted to participate.
Yeah, so powerful stuff, really just adding to what we've heard already today. If we skip to the next slide, that powerful stuff is also what benefits in training. So a lot of the audio stories, they're made as part of the kind of public engagement involvement of research, but they can then be used, and we do use them in training in the health and social care sector. So that's a kind of another dissemination tool. And we found that, so there's VCSFE, doctors, healthcare in that picture. You can see them. We use wireless headphones a lot for more of the immersion. It deepens the connection to the stories they're listening to, so really connects them to the lived experience that the research is all about. asks them to become a participant, putting that shoes on. We did it literally in the workshop, but we do it metaphorically with the audio stories. And then it prepares people to make action and commit to change. The participatory arts, what we do, what Steph's done, what Ross creates, you know, it inspires people to make changes. And that includes commissioners and at policy level. So just quickly skip through the next bit. So these are some quotes from people that have been part of the workshops, including the one with the shoes. My favourite, a brilliant way to see us all as people first, not them and us, not patients and professionals, not paid and unpaid, but all of us as people first. And we hear
Tess, we're just running out of time.
Yeah, no, grand. So I'll just skip through the last two. This is a blog, the next slide, that I chatted with Anila and Sue. So this really unpacks a lot of the themes about how participatory arts can help embed these values. And the next slide, these are all available on the website. These we can give you in links. These are two journal articles. Stephanie's in one, you can see Anila's in them. So yeah, we can give you those on request that unpacks these ideas. And then finally is just a contact slide. Again, you can go on our website. All our resources are on the members area. And if you are interested in us being involved in the public and engagement part of your work, please get in touch.
Thank you so much, Tess. There's so much good work that you've been doing, and yeah, that kind of respecting the community values. You do that all the time with lots of different communities that you work with. So thank you so much for your presentation. If anyone's got any questions for Tess or wants to get in touch, please put anything in the chat, and Tess can pick that up. Thank you very much. Joanna, were you just kind of thinking about that? I'm sure there's researchers on the call going, yeah, but where do we start? How do we do that? How do we kind of start that conversation? We've had lots of richness of Steph talking about these amazing communities that she worked with, and where do you get to that? Please just get in touch. Through this research engagement network, we've managed to speak to so many VCFSE sector, so many community champions, community connectors, these real linchpins of the communities, and they're really wanting to work with researchers, and all they're asking is just to kind of be part of that process of getting involved early, and wanting to kind of have some mutual beneficial, all the public community connectors that I know are like, they're desperate to be involved in research. They've got such rich knowledge of their communities and they can really value pieces of research, but it's just about that having a conversation early. So even if you're thinking of an idea, they want to be involved early at that stage, and we have all these connections. So just get in touch with the REN team if you want to kind of start on one of these approaches and don't think you need to do something quite as big as what Steph does. Exactly what Steph said, start small, and we can help you with that. So have we got any questions in the chat? I've not read a dot of it, so sorry about me. Do we know if we've got any questions?
Any questions so far at the moment, Anila? Lots of praise for the work, but no questions.
Well, obviously, and I'm sure Steph and Tess are happy to take, conversations, pick up conversations with people outside of this. We have other opportunities as well for people to, if they want to get involved with communities and work with communities at the early stage. We've got our Learning for Change programme, which has just about to start actually next week, the first cohort of the Learning for Change programme, which is a space where VCFSE and researchers can start building those conversations and that trust, and start having conversations about what research within that community will look like. Joanna, do you have the slides for the brilliant? We've been working with 3 communities, one in Gorton, one in Bolton and one in Rochdale, with this idea that came up through REN about having this research hub. And these are community spaces where local people are using the spaces and working with a VCFSE organisation. So for Gorton and Bolton, it's CARN, the Caribbean African Health Network, and in Rochdale we're working with Awakening Minds, which supports South Asian women and South Asian community and mental health. And we're kind of preparing the community and talking about what does research look like, how do you want to be involved with research, how do you want to speak to researchers. So they're really in a space where they want to start that community conversation. So if any researchers were looking at putting on we've had our our Bolton event, where we showcased what that community had done in the way of creative art to talk about mental health research. You just go on to the next slide, Joanna. And they showed all their what they'd done. So they did some arts around it. What is research? What is mental health? How is it to have a conversation? And the event went really well. We still have Gorton and Rochdale, where we want to take researchers into the community, where the community can showcase their conversations, them getting prepared to have the conversation about research. And they really want to start having that conversation about being involved in research. And we know through experience that if you get communities involved in research, design and planning, then they're more likely to get involved in that participation within research as well. So being in the big data and being open to be interviewed. So get in touch if you're interested in those events. And I'm going to hand back to Sue.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Anila. We
Anila,
do have a question.
yes.
Oh,
sorry,
cool.
Percy, were you? So we have a question from Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. Around particularly for Steph, I think. How have you found health researchers responding or connecting with these methods? And I really loved what you said there, Tess, about people first. And I think when we go into work mode, we often just forget that everybody are just people. And we need to find ways that we connect people as people first rather than in these roles. But Steph, if you got any reflections on Kathy's question?
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree. And it's something that I would really like to move for us collectively as a research community to move towards, is that this isn't the afterthought once we've done the research, once we've got the bits that we want from it, that this is kind of embedded from the start. And I think I would like that to be less of like a kind of personality ethos and more something that is really driven from research itself. And I think that is becoming more and more so. But I think people are, newer to this than others. I was very new to it. But I think we just need to keep promoting the benefits and the values of these approaches. And I think that helps to get more people on board. And I've been very candid in my reflections, because I also think that's another barrier to it is people just get quite daunted by it. I was really daunted going into this process. So I also want to try and lead by example a bit on that front and just be quite honest about how we do these things and focus on the process so that we can break down those barriers where people are interested and do want to take the stuff forward.
Thank you, Steph. Yeah, and I think it's really key as well, the time that's factored in, and then we get bogged down with grants and funding timelines, and it's not necessarily a lack of will, it's a lack of the structures that we're putting into place where we're moving from project to project really quickly. So I think there's a lot to reflect on here, isn't there, to enable these conversations to happen. Any other final questions? If not, we will wrap up. Joanna is about to share something else, I think. Oh, there we go. Future webinars. This is, as Percy said at the beginning, is just the start of the conversation. Here, we really want people to engage, reach out. The more we connect with each other, I think, the more opportunities we're going to find to change the way that we work. So there are 2 more sessions coming up. One is about accessible approaches, accounting for communication accessibility needs, and that will be presented by Louise Gorman and Caroline Sanders at the Patient Safety Research Centre with some amazing voluntary sector organisations as well. And then we have a final session, which is very much a panel discussion Q&A around how we foster these mutually beneficial relationships. So how we unpackage some of the challenges around how we make sure we have the time, we have the resources, we have the funding, that we can really do this work effectively. Just one more final question before we finish. Just a thank you to everybody. Thank you to our speakers today, Steph, Russ, Tess. Thank you for giving your time today to join us. There is a question, just bear with me one second.
So that's about smaller scale, and being a PhD student with a very limited budget. And we have, we've got experience of kind of making those links. Just because you've got kind of that PhD budget doesn't mean you can't use it effectively and be able to reach within a community. As I said, we've got links with community connectors, and we've had other PhD students who've worked with community connectors to work within the community around a project, and whether that's around the design or the approaches that you're taking. So yeah, get in touch. Mowena, I'm going to go with Mowena. I'm hoping that I've said that right. Get in touch and I can support with that.
Start small, and some great food and a community venue is ultimately all that's needed to go and spend time in communities. So yeah, let's reflect on that. It doesn't have to be really big funded projects. Let's make some small changes towards a better future. And there's just a few final. Sorry, Neela, go on.
I was just saying that the good thing about going into a community and working with a community connector is they know all the local good food and the local people to be able to get it in and get that value for your resource. So yeah, it's definitely worthwhile no matter how small your budget is. Sorry, Sue.
That's great. Thank you, Anila. And we'll finish there. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.